Thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking your time on a Saturday morning. And also thank you, Mayor Baraka, for taking your time on a Saturday morning. People want the mayor to be everywhere. And if I told you what his schedule was, you would wonder why he's still standing. So Mayor, thank you for thinking it important enough to be here with us this morning. I also want to thank the policy advisor in my office. Is Ashaki Larkins in the room, or is she running around somewhere? So the lady that you saw running around like a chicken with her head, oh, here she is right here. Yes, I said it, run around. But the thing is that Ashaki is the person who holds it down, and I really just want to thank you for that, for making everything happen this morning. And again, apologize that breakfast wasn't up and ready as it should have been, but I hope that everybody's okay now. You've had your caffeine and you've had some food, and we can move on with the morning with comfort. So today, the agenda is not an extensive agenda, but we're going to go deep. We're going to go a little bit deep. We're going to have remarks from the mayor. Okay, and then the mayor will introduce our incoming superintendent, who will also make brief remarks to you. And after that, we're going to talk, and the topic is your school a community school? And I don't want you to get thrown off by that. We're not talking about who's designated as a community school. We're not talking about who's received any money for anything. We really want to kind of take a look at what community school means in a national lens, and think about what's going on in our schools. Do we think that these things are important? And if we do, how are we doing them in our schools? And just some thought. During the summer as educators, we try to relax, but we also think about education, and we always think about what's going to happen during the next school year. So what we want to do today is offer some food for thought, and that food for thought you will be able to actually utilize, not just in your schools, but as we move on with various types of planning during the next school year. So without further ado, I introduce to you our mayor, Mayor Ras Baraka.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. All the work that you do in your office to make sure this happens for us. And you're right, I have 1,000 things to do today, unfortunately. I want to say thank you for coming out this morning. For all of you who came a second time, and for those of you who are the first time, I think is incredibly important to have educators in the room, particularly principals, especially at this time period in the city as we undergoing the Renaissance. All these things that are happening in Newark now, and all of the talk about whether our families are going to be ready for the things that are happening in the city. And the only way we are going to be really sure of that is to make sure that the students that are coming out of these schools are ready, particularly if we're forcing industry and higher ed to pay closer attention to what's happening in Newark. We have the Department of Labor on the state and federal side talking about our hire by live, our strategy to get corporations to hire Newark residents, to invest local in businesses, to get their employees to live in the city of Newark. They want to know where this pipeline is coming from, right? So they all want to duplicate that, but ultimately they want to know where this pipeline is coming from. When I met with Amazon when they came here, we had a great meeting at the old Central High School, which is now a part of NJIT, which is, if you went over there, God knows you would not knew it was ever a Central High School. That place is so different, man. It's crazy. But at the end of the day, Princeton, Rutgers, NJIT, everyone was there with us, and we had a student there as well, who represented us very, very, very well, in fact. And the question they asked us was, what they asked Rutgers on the spot was, what if we needed 30,000 more students to graduate from this school every year? How would you make that happen? What if we need 30,000 more kids to graduate from Princeton or NJIT in 2 years? Where would they come from, and how would you make it happen? What is the greatest obstacle in the way of that, right? And that's because their greatest interest is talent pool, a diverse pipeline of folks that are going to come through there institution and make sure that it continues to grow and that the innovation and the creativity is there. Luckily, we had Jordan present, and he represented us well. Rhodes Scholar, graduate from University High School. He represented us extremely well, which proved to them that despite what they heard before they came to the city, that we actually have students on a caliber that's able to compete with kids all around the world, not just the state. And it was great for us. But ultimately, what the schools were saying was, so some of the problem is just infrastructure. We have to build infrastructure. We have to expand and develop it. We have to talk to the mayor about that and the governor. But the other part of it is we need to make sure we focus on grabbing these kids from this area, right? From this area. And this area includes Newark. Grab the kids from this area. And Rutgers has been doing an outstanding job at that. NJIT, is going to do better. I had a talk with the Superintendent Leon and the university president about some ideas of how to get more students into NJIT, which right now has less than 1% of its student body is Newark residents, which is not good at all, right? We are working to improve that. And so we need to make sure we create pipelines. That's why we believe community schools are very, very, very important for us. And we're going to continue to push that and continue to make sure we provide the resources for that. Now, I'm not sure if everyone knows what community schools even is, if it's like some catchphrase or thing that people are using. This is like the new saying now, some new reform thing that we coming up with that we sick of, as educators. But community schools is not a model. It's not something, it's not, thank God, it's not Success for All. or some of you know what Success for All is, right? I was here when they made us do that. They beat us over here, gave us a paper. The kid has to, you had to. It was bizarre. But it's not Success for All, and it's not even the whole model. It's not the whole reform models that are pushed out here now today. Community schools is what every community in this country actually has, right? Every community that seems to be doing well, because there's nothing wrong with the public schools. There's nothing wrong with public schools because they work in some communities, right? They work in those communities that wrap all of their institutions around those kids. And there's this whole discussion about whether we're spending too much money or not enough money on the schools in or education in these school districts. Let me tell you something. If Abbott was fully funded, Newark would get an additional, you ready? $140 million a year. If Abbott was fully funded, Newark would get $140 million additional dollars a year. So that's what you're missing in the budget every year. $140 million. That's big. That's a lot of money. That's not peanuts. That's why people are fighting about it. It's a lot of money. If we had an additional $140 million, and we need that money because the issues that we fight in this city are different from issues that other folks fight. You have chronic absenteeism, right? We have huge, because of the environmental issues that we have in our city, we have huge issues around special ed, around autism, around all of those other multiple learning disabilities, things that take place in our community. We have broken families and poverty and unemployment that we try to take care of in our school district, why we need attendance counselors, why we need guidance counselors, why we need child study teams, why we need all of these things, after school program, before school programs, and all of that costs money. And plus we give people summer school for free, right? We give them remedial classes for free, right? We allow them to go on trips for free. We do all of these things for free, and somebody is paying for it, so it's not really free, right? But somebody's paying for it, right? And so that is all of the money that we use over and over and over again. So how do you make up for that? We have to make up for that by creating these institutions in our city to make sure that they surround the children. People don't think that they spend that money in suburban districts because the mothers and fathers pay for it. They pay for it. They pay for extra SAT classes. They pay to give them after-school programmings. If they have a problem, they pay for a psychologist. They pay for, if they have a problem, if they act like they're going to commit suicide, they're going to the doctor. They might go on a summer trip vacation thing that's really the doctor, right? They have all of these things built in, right? And they have summer programs where the kids can work after school or work in the summertime and all these things. And that's what you're supposed to do. In our community, we don't have those things set up. And community schools really speaks to those things, all of those things that exist to make sure that we're taking care of our whole kid. Is there something for them to do in the summertime? Is there something for them to do after school? There's a problem in the household. How do we address it? If there are issues that we have, what institution in the city can we use to organize this, right? How do we get uniforms for the band, uniforms for the school, uniforms for the cheerleaders? How do we create after-school programming for children in special interests that they need, right? How do we do all of these things? We can't do it alone. We don't have the money to do it. The institutions in the city are organized and designed to make those things happen for us. And that's what we want to do. That's what community schools is. And finally, it's about collaboration. And I'm going to sit down. But everything that I've learned to do well in city government, I learned as a principal. And people always ask me that, right? So when I go places and they always ask me, how are you doing this? How are you making this happen? How did you get in this room? How did you get in that room? How did you make these people sit down? And honestly, I learned how to do all of these things as a principal. Being a principal has taught me the number one skill. It's interesting when you look at the schools because we don't use it. The number one skill that we need as a principal to be successful is collaboration. Right? It's collaboration. You can't make your school work by yourself. It's impossible. If you're in there by yourself making the school work, you're going to die. You know that. You know that and I know that. You're going to die. You just can't do it. You can't do it. You can't wake up early in the morning, get to the school, make sure the hallways is clean, there's no flood in the basement, that the windows are not broke, that somebody wrote graffiti on the wall, right? To make sure, and then on a Monday, something happened on the weekend to make sure that those kids who then went to jail or got hurt or some fight that happened wind up in your school. You can't do all this alone. You need a quality head security guard, right? You need a quality head custodian. You know that I know these things, right? You need a few good teachers in the classroom. Hell, give me a few good teachers in the classroom. A few. If I get 4 or 5, I'm good, you know? I could rock the rest of this on my own, but I need 4 or 5. But if I had no good teachers, it's over. I'm done. I'm go home and cry every day after school, right? If the kids are running through the hall, if I don't have any help, right? And how I'm gonna do this and get my paperwork done at the same time, and the district is going crazy with all these observations I got to do. They losing their mind. 50 observations. How much? 50 observations, be in the cafeteria, outside after school, in the auditorium. How am I going to do all of this stuff? It's impossible. And if I try to do it alone, I will be in trouble. I need to find a team. I need a team. And I got to build a good damn team. And I need the district to help me pick a good team. And not send these crazy people in my school. Right? Who don't want to do nothing but go home. All power to you. I know you want to go home. So do I. We got some work to do. Or they send me people that's too ambitious to work. You know people who want position before they do anything? We don't need that. We need collaboration, right? That's what we need. So everything that we're doing well at, that we're successful at in the city, is because we get help. We collaborate. And the things that we're still struggling around here in Newark, it's people holding it close to their vest and they don't want to share. Right. They don't want help. They don't need help. Right? We had a 50-year reduction in crime in our city. We have it in the city, right? We still have incredible issues in Newark, trust me, right? But we had a 50-year reduction. And that's because of collaboration. Collaboration. I got the police department to collaborate with the Newark Community Street Team, with people 5 years ago they wouldn't even be sitting in a room with. Ex-gang members, ex-folks that just came home from jail, and people who, academics. Like, so they let Rutgers come into police departments. and get information from them and analyze them and not be afraid that they're going to use the data to talk bad about the police department, right? They come in there and sit with them and use all of the data. And you know what it helped the police do? To say, listen, the crime is happening in these specific communities around these specific issues. And so, you know, we found out that something that you know probably anecdotally, that majority of the crime or the violence in the city is not gang violence. That's what people thought. It's not. You know what it is? It's personal disputes. Personal disputes. Most of the crime in the city, 50% of it is personal disputes, almost 60% personal disputes. I'm angry with you, I don't like you, and some of the people are in the same gang anyway. They have personal disputes, and the personal disputes lead to murder, which is why they understand they need to work with the community street team, because the community street team deals with personal disputes. So it makes it easier for them to open up and say, let's sit down, let's talk, because the police can't go into Betty Shabazz or Georgia King Village and have a conversation with those people in there about their personal disputes. But Raheem, that just came home 3 years ago, can do that. With the right training and the proper information, he can make that happen. So that's what really community schools at the base of it is about. And what we did at Central that was helpful to me is we collaborated not just with the folks in the school and the community and all this other stuff, we collaborated with the other schools. And therein lies our problem here. All of our schools are on an island. In fact, we're in competition with the school that's next to us, as opposed to using all of these schools as an opportunity to help us improve what we're doing. Every elementary school that feeds into my high school is necessary for me to talk to, necessary for me to deal with. I have to. It's imperative that I talk, because I'll get those kids next year or 2 years or 3 years from now. I need to find out what they know today, what they need to know. All of those schools, every school in my neighborhood, whether I'm Weekway or Shabazz, we all need to be collaborating, right? Because any problem that happens at Weekway is going to show up at Shabazz. And if you don't believe that, just stay here a little longer, right? As many times I had to take Mr. Thomas over there, we had to go all the way to Weekway High School and talk to the principal and the kids because stuff happened at Central, right? Or we had to go to Shabazz and exchange kids. We had to say, you take our 3, we take your 3. We did that. We said, these 3 are crazy. They'll be better over there. And we'll take those 3 that are crazy over there, and we'll bring them over here with us. And you know, we found out the crazy people from Shabazz, when they came to Central, they was the quietest kids in the whole school. Yeah, and because they didn't know anybody. But ultimately, we have to collaborate with each other. And that's what we're trying to create, an atmosphere where all of us are collaborating, where we look at the schools as one community. And I think Roger Leone, the new superintendent, is going to help us make that happen, to look at our schools as one community, one city, you know, all of us together, to make sure that we're using the talent, the skills, the resources that we have in our schools to share with one another, but also you know, tap into the institutions that exist in the city, whether they're private, public, philanthropic institutions. You should be benefiting from them. That's why we need to have a relationship, because whatever I have access to, you should have access to. Whatever I have the ability to make happen should be able to happen for you in your schools and around your schools. Any issues that you have, it is our responsibility to make sure we help you navigate those issues, because we need to navigate your children into better spaces than they're at. So that's our job as a collective, to make sure that our kids are growing, they're graduating, they're moving into these colleges, they're going into these careers, and they're making our city develop. Or else we're going to have a city full of people we're going to be Brooklyn or Harlem, and I don't want that. And we're working hard not to be Brooklyn, not to be Harlem, not to be Vancouver, right? We want to be Newark, and we want to build the city with the kids that are already here. And the only way we could do that is that we need your help to get them through the school, but we want them to also have a job here in Newark. And we want them to have a home here and raise their family here in this city. And we have a lot of work to do to get that done, and I can't do it, like I said, by myself, or I'm going to be dead, right? I need all of you in this room to help me get that to happen. And Tony is going to get us deeper and deeper into what community schools is about. And, you know, I don't know why Roger Leone wants to be the superintendent of all of this, but But I have faith that he's going to do an outstanding job here. And there's a lot of work to be done in this city, right? And good, bad, or indifferent. At the end of the day, when we come to work, we have to put our collective minds together, because our collective IQ is always going to be bigger than our individual IQ. So thank you. Come on, Roger.
Morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. Let's hear it for our mayor. Before I get into a couple of things, I think that the work that occurred at Central High School is something that's not only something that we are going to study, it's something worthy of just putting at the table right now. A team is needed. That's definitely true. The work is that big. One person is not going to be able to do it. I understand that. However, there are 3 things that happened at Central High School that moved the student achievement, just looking at standardized test scores only. We know that there are other factors that actually determine how a school is moving, but the first one that we will always look at is student achievement. He had 32% gains in literacy, 29% gains in mathematics, and albeit that they were behind, those gains occurred within a very, very short period of time. He did not wait 3 years to see those gains. He did not see those gains after he left. He saw them while he was there. I'm talking about within a year and a half time. There were 3 factors that contributed to that. Now, I've known him for a very, very long time. I had a conversation with him the other day of, is there a duo team like this in the country? He graduates from University High School while I graduate from Science High School. And I knew of him just because of a couple things occurring at University High School. But we really didn't know each other. When I became principal of University High School, he was actually working at the school and his alma mater. And from that point in time to today, when he got into the seat at Central High School, and then my appointment overseeing and supervising the high schools, is when I really got a chance to work with him to the degree that I speak of these 3 things today. And it was collaborative. But the first thing is that he was the leader. There weren't 8 people trying to be the leader. There weren't 50 people trying to be the leader. There is no research in this country that says a group of teachers can move a school. Not a group of teachers, not a vice principal, not middle management, but a principal leads the school. And he did that. Second thing that was done there, here's where the collaboration comes in. So he winds up hiring Javier Nazario, who was a social studies teacher that I hired, a former student of mine. He becomes the vice principal at the school, and we began to do some of the things that we were doing at University High School at that time, which was a collaboration between the English department and the social department, intense. A collaboration between the math department and the science department, intense. Focusing on how to not undo what the other one was doing. And we kind of gave a little example of the high school principals with regards to that. That vertical articulation, that horizontal articulation began to move the instructional piece. And it didn't do it 2 years later. It actually did it when they started it. The third thing, and probably the most important, but I think all 3 are equal, so I take that back, as it relates to what occurred beyond the school day. By that time, I became the department deputy chief academic officer, and he wanted to have new courses that were going to challenge the human condition of students at the school. So there were courses that were never approved before. They were courses that he felt that the students were compelled to have to take to learn. And what he did is he offered those after school. That the after school program was not remediation, that it was adding to it. In the example that I could do a crosswalk at both Horton and University for myself, at Horton, we actually took Saturdays because we needed 6 days of school to actually do 5 days. We needed the 6th day to caught up. At University High School, we did that initially, but eventually we had 6 days of school, not to catch up, but to actually move the conversation forward. So those little kind of experiment that occurred at Central High School that I think are just indicative of some of the incredible work that is ahead. As to what is ahead, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Antoinette Baskerville-Richardson and her team for their work. During this time period from after the vote, I've been calling this part of what I have been doing up to the 30th of this month a running start. Obviously, those of you who know, I have been in this district my whole entire life, not only as a student, teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, not only a principal at an elementary school, but a high school, not only an assistant superintendent of high schools, but of elementary schools. And I've seen the entire curriculum offerings and support services of this district. In the last 2 years, very, very much involved in operations in a very more intense way than ever before. I know this organization. I know it. I love our city. And in order for us to accomplish the goals that the mayor is setting up on the business level, we obviously have to do something dramatically different at our level. And we will. And we will do it dramatically. And we won't wait 2 years to get that done. And we will do it together so that people stop, oh, am I a part of it? You know, yeah, we're gonna need a lot of people to be a part of it. On July 1, the 100-day plan begins. The 100-day plan will outline a number of things. It'll outline what the organization will begin to look like. It'll outline for us what transition to local control really means. Because there are a lot of people who treat my board as an advisory board. There are people on the board who believe that they haven't gotten to that point where the level of respect that is due for them is theirs. So they need to also act like they are the board, and they also need to be treated like they are the board. But that occurs throughout the whole entire organization. That means that my responses to them have to be not of an advisory nature. So I have to model it for everyone, that the administrative team in the district, whether it's in central office or at the schools, has to understand that we actually have a board of education, and that the practices that we did under state control obviously are ones that are of the past. That holds true for our instructional staff and all of our support staff. It is true for our parents. It is true for our vendors. It is true for higher education. Anyone who's involving themselves with our school district, it is true for all of them, and most of all, it is true for our students. When we return, I'm putting it out there so that it actually happens. I have an outline of superstars who are going to be providing some intensive professional development on the most highest level that they have ever seen as it relates to our school leaders. And that'll occur in August, and I'm extremely excited about that. When actually all of our teachers return, and you know how you have been reading a lot of books and just doing a lot of learning during the entire from those of you who are the youngest administrators to those of you who have been here, pretty much as long as I have, we're going to actually have presentations by the authors who actually have written the books that you have been reading to actually intensify the support in a very profound way. When all of the staff returns at the end of the month in August, I will call the entire district together, and we will have an actual conversation with everyone, whether you are a per diem security guard or the deputy superintendent of schools, and everyone in between. And in that conversation, one of the things that I have learned, I have been invited during the course of the last 20 years to conversations of small groups of people where a plan was discussed, where a secret plan was discussed, and shared not necessarily through the appropriate means. So at one point in time, documents were shared that weren't supposed to be shared and leaked to the broader community and incited the community. During this whole running start, I've met with everybody. I haven't finished yet, but I'm going to come close to it on the 30th. At that August meeting, I will leak the plan so that everyone knows what is going to happen with everyone that finds the Newark Public Schools as an important part of their either life because they're a student, or life because they're an employee, or life because the city of Newark is important to them. Because we cannot have any secrets. We are going to be so transparent that you will see 2020 prior to that year arriving. We will actually get into many meetings at the start, convocations of the entire senior class. So the class of 2019 will actually receive a charge from me that I will give them until May to complete, with a celebration in June. The class of 2020 will be given a challenge. So all of our juniors will meet with me, and they will actually be required to complete their task within a year and a month. Same thing with the sophomores, same thing with the freshmen. As I'm entering into this position as a freshman, I understand what they are going through. I will meet with the class of 2022. I will give them the hardest challenge that we have ever given a student body as a class, as in a whole. At that meeting, obviously all of the high school principals are invited to all of these sessions, but that 2022 class is going to be challenged in such a profound way that I am just can't wait until that day arrives. And I leave you with this, that the work that we're going to be doing will require a lot from everybody. You know, one of the things that this mayor is modeling for the nation is the importance that education actually is in the citizenry. We don't need people to be scared about what's going to happen in our city and then decide to move because someone else is going to take advantage of that. We experienced that in the 50s and early 60s. We know what greatness is. This city is a great city. This city modeled itself across all cities in this nation during that time period as the top performing school district, not schools. We didn't have top schools in the country. We had a top district in the country. I will challenge the 8th graders, which we have never done before. This is something that actually the mayor, when he was principal at Central High School, said, I want to do something with the Central Ward schools. I want to have a meeting with all of the 8th graders to impress upon them how their future can be better, just because they actually do what they're supposed to do and take advantage of the learnings that are occurring in the South Ward when he was the councilman of the South Ward. We're going to do that same strategy because the district has never done that part before. We will do it with the entire class of 2023, all of our 8th graders, and we will do all of that at the start. I'm looking so forward to the work ahead, and I share with you that it is not only going to be an exciting time in our school district, it is going to be an incredible time in our great city, and being a part of that is simply what everyone is going to want to do. I thank you for being here this morning. I thank him for recognizing you in this way, and I look forward to the work ahead.
Thank you. I know it's a few days early, but I'll say it. Thank you, Superintendent Leon. We're going to, how can I say this? I think it's wonderful to have a superintendent with such big ideas, but it's up to all of us to really make those ideas come true on the ground. We're going to focus now on the topic of the day. We're going to talk about community school, what that means. And today is not a day to dig down deep into the Newark South Ward Community Schools Initiative. That's not what this is about. What I will tell you very briefly is what the mayor's office role is in that. We're part of the group that is basically considered the leadership team of the South Ward Community Schools Initiative, which is composed of representation from the mayor's office, representation from the district, and representation from the Newark Trust for Education, which is the intermediary for the initiative. Out of our office, we're the backbone for two particular parts of the initiative. One is the national board, and the national board is folks who have worked on community schools, have a history of it for over 20 years all over the country, along with some heads of CBOs and other organizations. Basically folks who are in one way or another organizationally involved in the work, and the role is to advise our particular initiative. And the leadership group has been, the leadership group basically just gets reports out on what's going on in the district. I think I said something wrong. I said right. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so let me just try to compartmentalize this a little bit because I think I went in another direction. Leadership group is those three: the intermediary, the school board. I'm sorry, the school district and the mayor's office. Then the national board advises on a national level and has been involved in just advising the initiative on things like budget, on how to manage the money, on what the priorities are. It was through those conversations that the community schools got to have coordinators in each school because there was not an initial understanding of everyone that kind of thing was important. And now we're focused on sustainability. The on-the-ground work that we're the backbone for is the Children's Cabinet. Children's Cabinet is modeled after New York City Children's Cabinet. The difference is in New York, the mayor has absolute control over the schools, so the mayor is able to say, we will all do this and that and these resources, and folks have no alternative but to do it. It's a little different in Newark because we're two separate entities, but what we've been very successful at, and of course we want to be more successful at, is using city departments and along with CBOs and other folks to come together in various committees and to figure out how we support the schools. How do we use the resources of the city to actually support the schools? So that's where the city comes into our initiative. And if you watch, we have a television show that we do, a cable TV show. It's called EduTalk. It comes on Newark TV and WKTV, and we've had several guests on from the community schools. If you can just Google it, and if you want to get like more information about what's going on, in particular with the Newark initiative, I think that's a good place to start. But what we want to do today is really just kind of come to an understanding on the national level. What is community schools? What does it mean? And why the heck are we saying now, after coming out of some of the trauma and the drama that many of us have experienced over the last few years, how did it come to be that we landed on community schools? Okay, and we know that we know about the Global Village Zone when Mayor Baraka was the principal there, and that was a community schools model that unfortunately didn't get the attention that it needed for an extended period of time. As Superintendent Leon pointed out to us, still there were leaps and bounds that the mayor then principal was able to make, and so we look back at that. But we are going to today just talk on a national level about community schools. And you all have a copy of the PowerPoint. The reason you have a copy of the PowerPoint is for your reference, because we're not going to go into detail. There are a lot of things here that you could actually, look up if you want to have more information. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. And it's a strategy. It's not just a bunch of programs, okay? It's not just taking some money and throwing out a whole lot of things and seeing what hits and not really being sure what exactly works or not. A lot of times we can say in schools we have all these programs and we see a change, so something must have worked somewhere. Okay, this is not the day of something must have worked somewhere. We are now in the time of people really wanting to know that their money is spent wisely when they invest in our schools and what exactly is working. And also to be able to begin to better meet the needs of individual children. So it's a strategy for organizing the resources of the school and community around student success. What is a community school? Both a place and a set of partnerships between the school and other community resources. Integrated focus on academic services, supports, and opportunities that lead to improved student learning, stronger families, and healthy communities. You'll see you'll see quotes from different organizations. These are the organizations that do this work and have done this work historically for a long time. The Coalition for Community Schools is one such organization. The Children's Aid Society, which actually does work with our community schools, is another such organization. Okay, and they have a developmental triangle: core instructional program, expanded learning opportunities, comprehensive support services. One of the sort of falsehoods that you will hear many times is that people will say, well, community schools is just about providing services, you know, it's just about after-school programs, it's just about, you know, emotional support. But at the core of it is academics. Because if we're not doing that, then we're not doing anything other than simply being a social service agency. Not that that's not important, but this is around schools and communities. So academics is always at the forefront. Here's some well-known models. I'm not going to read them all to you. You have the information, but if you want to really go deeper into what some of the models are that work, they're right here on this page. And next we're going to talk a little bit about community schools, that it's a strategy that's rooted in research, okay? And again, we believe that this is a model that is good for us because it is rooted in research, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to use the research that exists to help us to make decisions as we model what we do in our district and our schools, but we're not starting from scratch. This is not our idea. We already do a lot of these things, but the idea of doing it in a systematic way and using data and making decisions based on that data is not new. It's what's being done all over the country, and this is some of the research base that you can actually look up if you want to get more information on any of these areas. Again, the next slide also talks about recent research from Chicago found these 5 essential ingredients. And we know all these things, but sometimes we think that like this is something new. No, we're trying to do what everyone else is doing well. That the principal is the driver of change, an inclusive leadership approach, real family and community engagement. And we know that's the hardest one a lot of times, because what does real mean? Ability to focus, to build professional capacity, student-centered school climate. Again, that's a really hard one. That's one that we are constantly learning about. How do we include community, and how do we include students, and how do we get ourselves comfortable with the practice of actually including students and community in our decision-making practice. And what I found, because one thing we've done from the mayor's office within the last couple of years, particularly this year, is travel all over the country and look at different community school models. And the thing that people tell us is that above and beyond all of these different buckets of things that you can say, you can check off, you have to have this, that, or the other, they say you know that your school works when you see, anecdotally, you see that the parents and the community believe and do own the school. When the school becomes theirs and they are able to communicate and make decisions as part of that decision-making body, they say that that's when you know that you have a community school. And it looks different in each and every school. And of course, again, coherent curriculum, okay? Coherent curriculum. There's also, on the next slide, health-specific research. And this is, there is a, in 2010, I know that's a long time ago, but still maybe worth taking a look at. Healthier students are better learners. I mean, we all know that, but there's some research that you can look at for that. Community schools' key ingredients. So, again, education first. Lead agency as partner, not tenant. It means that as a community school develops, and as a community school program or district develops, the role of a lead agency is not just to be there and deliver a service, but is a partner to the school and a partner to the district. Full-time presence of a lead agency. We're not there with all of these things. I'm not saying that. We're just talking about best national models, best practices. Centrality of principals, community school director partnership. That's a hard one. Principals, I know, that's a hard one, to have this person in your school who is not the principal, but who is a real part of making decisions in the school, to the point where it's a partnership. Needs assessment drives decision making. We do needs assessments, we do a lot of surveys, we do a lot of that kind of stuff, but where I don't think we are is really using that data to make the best decisions. We have it, how do we use it? I mean, the question is always like, where do we get the time to actually do that? But it's something that we have to figure out. And so there's some systemic changes that also take place within districts that do this well, and a realigning of priorities. But to actually use that data, because the better we use the data, and the better the data is that we get, the more we're able to make informed decisions and to meet the needs of particular families and particular children. Integrate the community school staff into planning, governance, and decision-making bodies, school leadership team. We're very much on the way to that. We have that in some schools, and we're very much on the way to doing that well. Key program components. Every community school doesn't have all of these, okay? Some community schools have the resources and, you know, have been doing this for a long time, 20 years, and they have all of these. And some schools that have all of these, guess what? This is the real world. They lose funding. Maybe they have it for 5 years and then they don't have it. Uh-oh. They have to figure out a way to get it again. So this is not, you know, everything is one step forward and hopefully not 2 steps back. But we have to understand the fluidity of this just like anything else. But the key program components are listed here: after school and summer, parent and family engagement, adult education, which we know within the system that we have not done as well as we would really like to do within the school system. And Mayor Baraka has made several strides towards that in terms of city initiatives, but it's something that we have to do better so that we have literate residents all over our city. Medical, dental, mental health, and social services, early childhood, and then community and economic development. If we look at the next slide, talks about changes in community school practice over 25 years. And you can see basically they started 25 years ago with a lot of co-locations, with the CBOs just basically seen as vendors, just fee for service rather than partners. Wraparound service that were just designed to fix kids, and everything was program centered, and everything was limited by a time. There was not a long-term projection when they started, and started developing in one or only a few schools. Where they are now, on looking nationally, and you can see, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in terms of what community schools look like nationally, it's developed a lot. If you look at the last 3, child-centered, long-term strategy, and developing systems of community schools. And that's what we're really, at least from the mayor's office, and we believe from the district, that's what we want to look at as we move forward. And community schools, the next slide, a results-oriented strategy. So the most recent report from the Coalition for Community Schools, and everyone can look that up online, it summarizes the latest research from evaluations nationwide: improved academic performance, improved attendance, higher graduation rates. All of the things that we look to see happen in our schools are documented to have happened at community schools. And the next slide talks about the Learning Policy Institute and the National Education Policy Center. They examined 143 evaluations of community schools. Let me just stop and say this. Right now, what's going on in Newark is our first external evaluation of the South Ward Community Schools Initiative. So that's not going to be probably completed until the end of next school year, which is kind of the end of the initial phase of the South Ward Community Schools Initiative. So by that time, we should have some really interesting data about our initiative. And it just talks about these evaluations of 143 community schools, and it's saying the community school strategy, and this is very important for us, meets all 4 levels of evidence under ESSA, very important. And the community schools are a viable approach to promoting educational equity. You know, we've had a lot of reforms within the Newark Public School system over the last few years, so it's very enlightening for those of us who are familiar with community schools to know that community schools is now on the national level a accepted quote-unquote reform that money like Title I and other monies can actually be used to support. And that community schools across the country have similar features. Integrated school supports family engagement, collaborative leadership. And most important, I think, is that the quality of implementation matters. And that's been kind of summary findings from the evaluations from these 143 schools. All four mantras, again, it's all about relationships. We all know that. Everything has to be negotiated, not just once, but all the time. And this is what I'm talking about, the fluidity of it. Getting the right partners doing the right work with the right students. If we use our data correctly, we'll do that. And for community schools to work, the partners have to have the word yes written in their hearts. It's very difficult to do this kind of work unless folks are ideologically aligned with the strategy and with what the outcomes should be. And now we're going to look, the last page that you should have, it says what are the four, it's a map showing what the 4 pillars of community schools look like in action. I'm not going to go over all of that. You can certainly look at it at your leisure. Again, do we have that slide up? Okay, but it's okay. It's the last page. It's the last page that you have inside. You can even look at it later, but it just talks about the 4 pillars of community schools and what they look like in action. Again, all the things that we try to do in our schools and in the support work that we do from the city all the time. Okay. So when I say that we're doing this work all the time, I know, I would ask for a show of hands, but I already know that everyone tries to support families, everyone tries to have rigorous instruction, everyone tries to have curriculum that is not only rigorous, but that is culturally responsible and relevant to our students. Everyone tries to have collaborative leadership, and everyone tries to have partnerships for their schools. So and there are many successes. So what we're talking about is how do we improve on what we're already doing, but how do we begin to do it in a really systematic way so that we benefit children and families as much as possible. And we say children and families because one of the core beliefs of community schools is that we have to remove the barriers that keep children from learning. Remove the barriers that keep children from coming to school, keep them from staying in school, and keep them from learning while they're in school. So that is kind of underlying everything that you will hear about community schools. We're going to, and I'm just kind of moving quickly because we're short on time, but chronic absenteeism, and I'm going to move right into chronic absenteeism because you should have an article in your packet from a New Jersey Spotlight article that just came out. And it's talking about the state's new law on absenteeism, that it's only the beginning. And that we're going to have to really deal with the issue of chronic absenteeism. We're now being mandated to deal with the issue of chronic absenteeism. And one of the things to understand about community school strategies, it has resulted in, and I hate to even go with the negative of talking about absenteeism, it has resulted in more students coming to school more often and more students coming to school every day, which is really hard to imagine. Even our best students, very few of them come to school every day, even though that's what we aim for. So this is a very important article for everyone to read as you have time to read it. We have about a half an hour left, and I want to really respect everyone's time. So what I would like you to do, we're going to do 2 things. And I want to do one really quickly, just because even if it takes up a minute, it's really important. And I have to ask everyone to just really say your name and your school and who you are at your school, so we can move through this whole room in a short period of time and still have time for some other work at the table that's really important. Can we agree to that, that we're not going to all talk about everything our school won this year? Yes. Okay. Yes. And I know, let me just say this, Superintendent Leon had to leave because of another engagement. The mayor may, I don't know if the mayor's able to, because like I said, his schedule's crazy, but please, you know, understand, excuse Superintendent Leon as well as the mayor. He has to leave early. So we're going to do this really quickly, and we're just going to move around. If you could please just kind of stand up, because and just quickly say who you are, where you're from, all that stuff. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Tanya Ballard. I'm the principal of Central Avenue Middle School, which is a part of North Star Academy.
Good morning. My name is Sylvia Stevis, and I'm the principal of Park Elementary School in Newark, New Jersey.
Good morning. Marie Rosenberry Donaldson, principal of Belmont Running School.
Good morning, everyone. Brenda Lee, Vice Principal of Central High School.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mary Tyson from El Young Learning Center Academy, located on Trafford Place, Newark.
Good morning. I am Tracy Watkins. I am the principal of Uplift Academy, which is a Newark Public High School that serves overage and undercredited youth.
Good morning. Alicia Lee, Vice Principal of the Early Childhood School North. Good morning. Melanie Austin Balaputra, Barringer Steam, Vice Principal.
Good morning, Angela Mincy, Principal of Barringer Steam.
Good morning, Dr. Dorothy Hanfield, Early Childhood Schools, Newark Public Schools.
Good morning, Jill Summers Phillips, Vice Principal, John F. Kennedy High School.
Good morning, Winifred Victor Hines, coordinator with Elliott Learning Academy.
Good morning, Atifa Buckley, principal of Speedway.
Good morning, Lauren Cook, Vice Principal at Marin.
Good morning, Maria Ortiz, Principal of Marin.
Hi everyone, Carissa DeSantis, Principal of Dr. Horton.
Good morning, Sharon Evans Hughes, Vice Principal at Dr. Horton.
Good morning, Larry Ramsey, Student Principal at Westside High School.
Good morning, Rosemary Morin, teacher coach at Westside High School.
The old lady. Good morning, Dr. Wanda Brooks Long, Principal Program Director, NICE.
Good morning, everyone. Akbar Cook, Vice Principal, Westside High School.
Good morning, Allison LeBon, School Chief and Information Officer, Mount Mitchell Bass High School.
Good morning, Edwin Mendez, Principal at University High School.
Good morning, Simone Morant, Eagle Academy for Young Men of Newark.
Good morning, Thomas Owens, Eagle Academy for Young Men of Newark.
Good morning, Yakima Johnson, Vice Principal, Westside High School.
Tina Taylor, President of the CASA City Association of Supervisors and Administrators, and former Principal of Science Park High School.
Good morning, Nicole Johnson, Principal at Elliott Street School.
Good morning, Dave Scutari, Principal, Mount Vernon School.
Hi, brothers and sisters. Walter from Mount Vernon. Great synergy. We're going to do this together.
Joyce McCree, Dr. Yelma Flag, Intervention.
Charmaine McCree, Dr. Yelma Flag, teacher.
Good morning, Resenda. I'm from Discovery Charter School.
Good morning, Carla Stevens, Principal of Bard High School, Early College.
Good morning, Edward Gordon, Principal of Roseville Community Charter School.
Good morning, Mr. Thomas, George Washington Carver, Bruce Street School.
Good morning, Dwayne McNeil, Instruction Coach, George Washington Carver, Bruce Street School.
Good morning, Dina Velez, Chief School Administrator, Newark Educators.
Good morning, Sam Garrison, Principal at Camden Street School.
Good morning, Jessica Silva, Principal at McKinley.
Good morning, Mike West, Vice Principal, Eastside High School.
Good morning, Mary Santos, Principal, Eastside.
Good morning, Edwin Reyes, Principal at Technology High School.
Good morning, Jason Denard, Principal at American History High School.
Good morning, Liz Crespo, Vice Principal, American History High School.
Good morning, SCIO, Eastside High School.
Good morning, Ricardo Pedro, Principal, Arts High School.
Antonio Lopes, Vice Principal, Artside.
Good morning, Marco Masanias, Opportunity Youth Network.
Good morning, everyone. Vernon Pullis Jr., Barringer Arts and Humanities, Vice Principal.
Good morning, everyone. Kimberly Hahn, Principal, Barringer Arts.
Good morning, Liliana Rodriguez, CIO at Roberto Clemente.
Good morning, Claudio Barbaran, Principal, Roberto Clemente School.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Sakina Pitts, Principal, Chancellor Avenue School.
Good morning, everyone. Kathy Duke Jackson, one of the Assistant Superintendents, K-8 Network. Good morning, Angelica Allen McMillan, the other Assistant Superintendent, High School Network.
Thank you all. And thank you for coming from all over our great city and from so many different schools to be with us this morning. Raise your hand if you got a chance to work on this questionnaire before we get started. Okay, so what I want to do, for those of you who did not, I know it's going to be kind of quick, and you know how every meeting is. You want to have enough time for the table work, and you never do. But for those who haven't, please pull this out. There are there's like 15, 16 questions. They're basically kind of yes-no questions, but as you do the yes-no, or however you answer it, you should also be thinking about what that means. So what we're going to do, and I know this is really too quick, but I want to allow about 5 minutes for those who did not get a chance to take a look at it to please take a look at it, and then after that time, we are going to just have a little discussion at each table, and if time allows, maybe one report out from each table, but please just take the next 5 minutes to work if you have not. I don't mean to work, to do this. Anyone who would like to respond to one of the questions, please just read the question for us and talk about your response. We understand that there is not the time for the kind of conversation that these issues deserve, but what we would like for you to do as you leave out, if you would hand this questionnaire just to us at the front table as you leave out, then when we come together again, we can refocus on this discussion. So what we'd like to do is go around to each table, and if there's a volunteer at each, let's go to each table once. If there's enough time, then we can revisit a table, but just to get some feedback on these questions at this time. So I'd just like to start at this first table here. Anyone who would like to respond to any one of the questions?
We'll respond to question number one, what makes your school a friendly place to enter? Oftentimes we look at education and we don't look at it. I mean, it's not a business, but customer service should be something that is fostered at every school. The analogy of going to a restaurant and not being treated well, what would make you go back? PD is important, from security guards to custodians to cafeteria workers. Oftentimes the first person, or actually the first person anyone encounters when they enter a building is security guard. So greeting that person with a smile, with a hello, greeting students that way first thing in the morning. It's not ideal to have students come in first thing in the morning and put your bag on the table, take off your belt, go through the metal detector, go back. So it's something that is necessary in our schools, but however, there's a way to do it so that everyone who enters the building feels welcomed and glad to be there.
Thank you. And say your school again?
University High School, home of the Phoenix.
Thank you. And if we could just pass the mic around the tables, I think that's the best way. Anyone who would like to respond on any one of the questions?
Good morning, everyone.
And please say your school again.
So Dave Scutari from Mount Vernon. And what evidence is there that the surrounding neighborhood feels a connection to the school? So our school, right next to it, is a huge apartment complex, and a lot of our families walk to the school, they walk their children, they come in, there's a constant presence in our building. We have parent visitation days where parents are free to come in and sit in the classes. We have a community food program where on Fridays we give food to the neighbors, and we have fresh fruits and vegetables. So there's just a constant back and forth. They're constantly interacting with our staff, with our students, and there's always a parental and family presence in our building.
Thank you.
They're passing the mic. So we didn't get you, but they're passing the mic around.
So
One thing we were talking about is number 5 is the site-based leadership at your school, building a culture of professional learning.
Please, I'm sorry, please say your school again.
Barringer Arts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the site-based leadership at your school building a culture of professional learning, collective trust, and collective responsibility? So yes, this is actually our strength. Professional learning happens to be my personal passion, and I believe that if we invest in the professional capital in our building and really enhance the capacity of our teachers and our staff, then that translates into the classroom. So professional learning anchors our school improvement efforts at Barringer Arts, and we work to build trust by having open lines of communication, being transparent, and involving every stakeholder in decision making. So that's something we were having conversation with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning, Jason Denard, principal of American History High School. We talked a lot about number 3, does your school have an active parent organization? And as opposed to just answering yes or no, we talked about the importance of providing our parents and our families with resources that they need to bring them into our schools. And once we have them into our schools, then we can talk to them about some of those things that we believe are important. But it was key to find out what your community needs, what's lacking, and make that connection. Bring those resources into the schools, and your school can then be a hub for your parents, which would then bolster your parent-teacher organization.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the gracious invitation to this breakfast. Hey, old buddy. We talked at the very beginning of the school careers together. You want an answer to number 3. Does your school have an active parent organization? We call ours a PTF, Parent-Teacher Fellowship, because it is a Christian school.
Say the name of the school.
Newark Christian School, the only one left in Newark right now.
No.
Hey, I'm not, I mean,
Oh.
okay. Sister school is in the house. Okay, sorry. It's come to that, though, that we really don't need to know each other, because our school was the best kept secret in Newark for a while. But anyway, when I got there just this year, there was no PTF. So immediately I knew that we had to address that. Out of 53 families, we got almost 30 to join. A tremendous influence on the school and the community. We had our first flea market just a month ago, and we raised over $3,000 for the school and the community. And it's just been great. I can't express to you what difference it is when you have the community involved in the school in terms of service. They took part in our devotionals. We had parent meetings throughout the year, and we did devotionals with them. We gave them information. We had business organizations come in there and talk to them about planning and management of their monies. It was a great start, because we're only starting there. This is our first year. I advise, if you don't have an active PTO, to work on in your school immediately. It will give you tremendous deep dividends. Amen.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We can pass this way toward the front.
Good morning, everyone. Carissa DeSantis, principal of Dr. Horton. In speaking with how we connect with the surrounding neighborhood, one of the things that my admin team and I have committed to doing with both morning arrival and afternoon dismissal is we actually walk around the block. We walk around the block in the morning. The premise was to really decrease tardiness, because we had a lot of students who were hanging out in the corner. So we go and we speak with the crossing guard. We speak with them in the stores. We let them know, hey, we start school at 8:10. If you see them in here, can you just tell them, get to school? So we formed, really good partnerships where we ran out of cups the other day, so we ran up to the store. They were like, here, take some cups. So we know that, they feel valued. They are welcome to come to all of our events. We give them the flyers. And, it's been something where the kids are like, oh no, they're gonna kick me out of the store now. So it's definitely helped us to have the involvement and get them to school.
Thank you. Good job for the table. Pass.
So since what makes your school a friendly place, we were just acknowledged by the state of New Jersey as being a spotlight school, as a community school. So that was really awesome.
Say the school name.
Camden Street School. From the School to Watch committee, they came in. They looked at our school, and I think what was most impressive before they even stepped in, the crossing guard welcomed them to our Camden family. And that kind of set the stage for them to understand what kind of school we are. So as the state of New Jersey goes forth, they're going to be sending other schools through the state of New Jersey to come to Camden Street School to see how we build community. So really excited about that in terms of building family. And I have to say that it's possible because I've seen it. I've seen it at Central, and I've just taken the same blueprint and bring it to Camden. So it's really neat to see. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, I think, 3 more tables.
Tracy Watkins, Uplift Academy, and I'd like to address number 6. Is student voice incorporated into your school's decision-making process? And the answer is absolutely. Sometimes, I think as school leaders, we are in the habit of making decisions about young people without including young people. And so at Uplift Academy, students participate in just about every decision-making process, whether it's hiring a new teacher. They come with us to the district's transfer fair to vet candidates who come over to the table. They make decisions from what paintings are going to go on the halls. They actually design the paintings. If a young person does something that harms the community, students are invited to participate in restorative conferences. They help decide what consequences the young person should face. And what we find is you take the student who is deemed like the most problematic child in the building and you say, hey, I'm interviewing this teacher for math class. Do you think you can stick around after school for about an hour and then come back when they do the demo lesson? And that young person is so excited that they always rise to the occasion because they are never asked what they think. And that's been very helpful with our culture climate with our students.
And I'm the principal of Park Elementary. I'd like to make 2 comments if I may. One is I really feel that I think it's so important to create a community where people really feel comfortable in your school. No matter what their business is, whether it's a parent or a guest. Many of you have touched upon things that we do, train our security guards, train our secretaries, have a service-oriented mentality. But I also think having a really clean building, making sure that you have lots of artwork, student work. We post our attendance bulletin board so that everyone can see our accomplishments, posters. We do a timeline of photos so that as people are walking in, every month they can see different photos of activities that are in the school. So in a snapshot, the entry is really meant to inspire you and get you to feel welcomed and warm in the school. So I really think that's something that we do well. In terms of student services, this is something where through the years we've seen student services dwindle in terms of a focus on growing students' mental health and students' needs. Lots of our students have diverse needs, and we're seeing less and less services for them. We do a pretty good job with attendance. So we've been able to maintain a 94% attendance even with a population. We have the medically fragile that have high absenteeism because of their medical conditions. So we feel we do a really good job with attendance. The reason I say that is it's almost like our SST, our student support services, are meant to really focus on developing students, but a lot of their attention is being placed in terms of attendance. And so we really need to focus on mental health development and maybe figure out what to do better with attendance in terms of a different agency to provide that service.
One of the challenges at Chancellor that I really entrenched myself in as the principal of the building this year. So the question is, has your school had success with reducing chronic absenteeism through developed strategies? My team started with looking at the data from last year, and we had 174 of about 520 total student body of students who had missed more than 10% of their school year. Abysmal. It was 32%. And when I looked at the school report card from the year before that, it was 24%. So my goal with our strategic plan initially was to lower the 32% by 5 percentage points. That would be 28%. We did a number of things. So it started with the work of my student support team, and that team meets every single Wednesday with Fidelity. If Barack Obama walks in the building, if Kathy Duke Jackson walks in the building, they're in that meeting with me because that meeting goes off without a hitch. we started case managing students. And so every single member of the student support team, 12-member team, from security guard, nurse, everybody had 3 to 4 students that they had to case manage. I know my court rep by name. Her name is Akila, and we work very, very closely together. We became the attendance counselors. We wanted to reach out to families to find out why, what's going on. Sometimes it's because of a dirty uniforms that they didn't have the money to get them washed. There's a number of reasons why students don't come to school, but the goal was to get butts in seats. So I am pleased to say that right now, June 18th is Monday. We don't have 174 kids who have missed more than 10% of their school year. We're at 88, and that's 17%. So we started an AM and a PM attendance because a lot of students were not being marked present because they're late. So every teacher has to take a PM attendance at the end of the day. We knock on doors, so if I haven't seen you in a few days, I'm on the ground. I will show up to your house. And that's the work that needs to be done to really tap into or lower chronic and severe absenteeism. It takes a group of people collectively, and we can incentivize and do things like that, you know, student of the month, but you have to get to the families and you have to let parents know that you want to support them in the process. The work is not over, so they extended the school year out, and that could really kill us because I have 48 students right now who have between 15 to 17 days. And the goal is to get them to not have 18 days. And so if they don't come the last 2 extended days, that's 48 children who could tank us. And so guess what? My community engagement specialist is reaching out every day. I pulled all the diplomas of every 8th grader who marched in the commencement ceremony on Friday. You will not get the diploma until you come until Wednesday, June 20th. So that was the work.
Thank you.
I wanted to answer the question. Surrounding neighborhood feels a connection to the school. We open up West Side from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. every Friday night, and in the summers, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. And I want to say the last few weeks we averaged 350 participants. 2 Fridays ago we had 501. We feed the children home-cooked meals. We offer henna. We do makeup, the eyelashes, the eyebrows for the girls. I have a recording studio, workshops. We have, I mean, you name it, we have it. And another thing, so I know we're going quick, we are partnered with PSENG and North Public Schools. We built the first laundromat, I think probably in the country for the kids. It's going to be free for all students to come and remove that barrier of not coming to school because their clothes are dirty. So we just wanted to say that.
So I guess this is the part where folks get to ask me different things. So, you know, whatever. I just want to say thank you to all of the, you know, the comments were great. You know, hopefully people took notes and tried to, it's okay to steal, you know that, right? So at least borrow from your peers. So any questions that you have of the city, of me, of anything that we, things that you need me to know, yes. Before I get out of here, yes, ma'am. We're looking good. We still they've already started eliminating people like privately out of the 20. That's not really public discussion, but we weren't one of them. So we still in the running. We still in the running. Yeah. Yeah. I actually believe we almost at 10 now. So yeah, you know, we there. So Newark has an extremely great opportunity to make this happen for us here in the city. And we're going to need your help with that. Yes.
At the last meeting, we talked about the possibility of looking at a system for a universal bus card.
Yeah. So we've been having those discussions. We had them with New Jersey Transit. We are still, you know, trying to get them through their bureaucracy to agree to do some specific things, and because of the transition with the superintendent, a lot of those discussions has ceased on the Newark Public School side. So, you know, hopefully we could re-engage the NPS about partnering with New Jersey Transit to make sure that every student has a bus card. So it would be less money for the district to give people these bus tickets that live, this amount of miles from home and so forth and so on. So we're working to give every student a bus card in their hand, and we're gonna make that happen.
I think the new information, $140 million if Abbott is fully funded, like what can the city do in terms of getting that balance? Like, what's in the works to get the rest of that money? Just any.
Well, so that is deeply political, right? So at the end of the day, we rant and rave, scream and holler, write letters, have meetings. We do all the things we need to do to make it clear. The problem is, the state of New Jersey has budget issues. So the $140 million has to come from somewhere. And because there are like 566 municipalities in a state that really doesn't need that. There are districts, all these districts in the state. And when you begin to take money, some people are going to lose money, and there's going to be a huge fight around the state of New Jersey. And it's inevitable, and it's going to happen in order for us to deal with these problems. There's some districts that don't even have a high school in the state of New Jersey, right? We have districts with one school, right? And a superintendent and everything else. But, New Jersey has that home rule thing. It's really, really, really crazy. But that has affected the distribution of resources on all levels. But we have to keep pushing, keep fighting. I think that we're going to have this governor, if his budget is passed, he is talking about funding the schools. He keeps saying he's going to fully fund Abbott. I pray that he's able to do that. But going forward, if his budget is passed, Newark should get at least an additional $60 million, hopefully. If he passes his budget and he goes through what he wants to do. But they're fighting on the millionaire's tax right now, so we don't get a government shutdown, because that may happen because they can't pass the budget.
We'd like to have the questionnaires from you, as well as the schools that I called, that we have the certificates for your students. Thank you all very much.